There's still unpacking for me. There's still a catharsis in writing. There's still a process of working it out. Yeah, there's been. I've had to have breakthroughs because I don't have the luxury of having a breakdown. I've not been put here to make people do a two-step. I'm here to hurt people in the most beautiful way.
Today, I'm blessed to talk connection with JP Cooper, a singer-songwriter with an urgent, almost overwhelming urge to give us everything he has in his heart, but only on the understanding that it may hurt a little, but in a beautiful way. We meet JP exploring a new landscape for him. Having lost his mum at 11 months old, it seems he has always been searching for a missing something, but without really knowing quite what that something is. Finally becoming the real JP, a simple northern lad who just happens to understand the beauty of tragedy. This is what happens as we press record. Where do I find you today? Where are you in your head?
Okay, interesting question. Where am I in my head in this moment?
In this moment,
I am somewhere between family man, husband, dad, trying to figure that out. I'm obsessed with creating. Obsessed. I'm so grateful to be obsessed because there's been moments that I've not. Right now, I'm obsessed with it. I'm excited. I am grateful. I'm optimistic, and I'm for the first time in a long time. I am validated by myself. I've got a busy brain, very busy brain. I can be very negative towards myself, even though I consider myself glass half full. But I'm obsessive when it comes to what I do, and I'm obsessive when it comes to wanting to be better, not just musically.
I get this sense from watching you and listening to you that there's been this long battle, not battle because it hasn't even been a battle. There's been a long conflict between being a provider and being a protagonist musically. Yeah. Is that true of you?
Do you mean a provider in general, as a
provider to an absent mother that you never knew and don't really understand how to love?
Yeah.
Grateful to your sisters for nurturing you and challenging you. Yeah. Grateful and grief-stricken for your dad's grief that you couldn't understand because you weren't feeling it, but you felt it through him. Grateful for this cocoon of love that you find yourself in, but somehow wanting to fight against its wall so you can also be you. And I wonder why you didn't let yourself be both.
Growing up, watching a dad struggle financially, emotionally, I know how that impacted me. So I guess in a lot of ways I was kind of obsessed with, I don't ever want my kids to see me like that. You know, it's ridiculous because we're human and nobody gets out without seeing that. But I've been governed by fear in a lot of my decisions and in a negative way. And I think that up until now has affected my creative decisions and a lot of my decisions at home. And I'm trying to really work on that. And I feel like, you know, I'm finally in a place where, like you say, when you talk about this guidance or this, what was the word that you used earlier about
divine channel?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, you know, I was raised in a Catholic family, so you know, I use the word sin, not lightly, but in more of a larger way. I think it's a sin to ignore that, and I think that ignoring your unique inner vision.
That's a bigger sin.
To look at it from a simpler perspective, it's like that. There's moments when I'm in my wheelhouse and I'm allowed to be in my wheelhouse. I grew up, we used to do these long journeys to, and I spoke about this before, to my grandparents' house, but I always resonate with the songs on the radio, songs like Everybody Hurt, songs that my dad played that they just hit me in a way that, so I was never really into the happy thing, and I felt like I've not been put here to make people do a two-step. I'm here to hurt people in the most beautiful way, you know, and I feel like that's my entire experience of life has been to be able to understand that and share it in a way through song, through sound, through, I don't even like the word performance because I don't really consider myself a performer, which is something we could probably dig a bit deeper on. But there are walls that surround our heart or whatever that people struggle to let down, and music has this way of just obliterating that. And that's what I really want to tap into. I always feel like I've needed space in between phrases and in between, tempos to really articulate that, or to let.
Well, that's the Quincy Jones statement, isn't it? It's not the words, it's the space between.
100%.
It's such a weird thing because for me, pain is purpose. So when I'm introduced to the most painful parts of myself in a safe way that I can look at it, it's heaven. Because I can be melancholic, but at the same time I can be euphoric.
Yeah. There's always been a thing of beauty within that. Again, like with my wife's losing her grandma at the minute, and we go in to see her and all I see is grace, all I see is beauty. And it's heartbreaking, but somehow I can see the beauty of the world in there. I've been blessed with something inside me that asks me to find beauty in as much as I can, which is
Something you've said, beauty and tragedy. I love that. I talk about that.
It seems silly, but you watch movies and they're heartbreaking movies that maybe you'll never watch again because they hurt so much. But there's so much beauty in there. There's a couple of movies that just broke me. One was Lion.
You've spoken, yeah.
And the other one was Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, what a film.
I can never watch it again. But absolutely stunning. Just
because
raw and human, and just all of the...
Who did you identify most with in that film?
In Manchester by the Sea?
Yeah.
That's an interesting conversation.
Let's have it.
So I think of the younger version of me, and I see myself now as a father to that child. I don't, as much as I know that I am him, I don't think, it's hard. I don't see myself as that child at all. There's two different things. I see myself as a guide to that child.
What if I was to say to you, flip it, what if he's the parent to you?
Maybe. Gosh, if I could have shown that little boy this view, having a wife, kids, a home, wow.
What if he's showing it to you right now?
Maybe.
Just by invoking him.
Yeah, I draw a lot of power from remembering that.
Did the little boy you, though he could not understand loss, recognize his abandonment, or was he just too nurtured by your sisters?
Abandonment never came into it.
Right.
I used to just cry. I'd have moments where I'd just cry. My dad would say, "What's wrong?" I don't know. And I guess that was my own way of dealing with, like, something's missing, and that was when I started to realize that. And I guess there wasn't an outlet at that point. There was prayer, there was conversations with my dad. We've always had these amazing conversations just about, he's an artist. My parents were both art teachers up until my mum died. And so there was this process of creation in the house. There was outlets, but I hadn't really discovered my version of that yet. And so I guess there was just this pent up, like, this melancholy. And I don't know, I always felt at peace with it. I was like, well, I don't really care what they think, which is strange because the older I get, the more I started to care. I feel like we get, some people say, like, when babies are born, they're still very connected to that other plane. And little by little, we forget that connection. So maybe that's the part of me that is...
Or is that a choice?
I don't know.
If we practice not to, how do you build a muscle?
How do you practice that as an infant, though? But maybe I actually was gifted in that because of that loss.
Exact.
It was always on my mind.
I wrote down, JP was gifted by being surrounded by women
Mm.
and the divine feminine,
Mm.
has he looked at loss as a gift?
Oh, sounds like a really weird thing to say yes to, but I've found great riches in that. And when I speak of riches, I speak of the richness of life. You know, I wrote this song ages ago, and it was like a bit of a prayer, and I asked to teach me of intensity. And sometimes I wish I never asked for that, you know, because, you know, there are certain experiences that you have where life is intense, but I'd hate to be numb. You know, I'd hate to not feel that kind of stuff.
But then you said earlier you go numb around tragedy.
Strangely enough, often when things like that happen, I shock myself because I'm like, why am I not a complete mess? It's like I've got this stiffness to myself when it comes to
Loss.
Yeah, maybe there's just a part of me that knows how to shelf the bad stuff.
I thought about it last night, and I thought about you because I thought the gift of the loss of your mother before you knew her means she can never be anything but the perfect mum.
It's amazing. It's I guess it's a lot for other women that I've met to live up to. There's definitely a fantasy idea of from the way my dad's painted the picture. I don't know, it is a blessing. You know, I've never had an argument or any of that. So it's a perfect loving relationship that luckily I've grown up with a relationship with that, rather than it being like, oh well, yeah, that happened, and you know, I feel very much guided. And again, that's the way I've been nurtured and the way I've been raised, is to believe that there is a guidance and there is a hand that is working in guiding my steps and in things like that.
But has loss been a driver for you creatively? Because it is something everyone else can talk about your loss. Yeah. Everyone else can grieve. I wrote down here the unnamed grief of loss. Because loss as a concept is something that you can't fully understand because you didn't experience it.
No.
Has that been a driver for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think connection as well. You know, there was always this, because at first, you know, when I was a kid, it was just, that was home. It's when you start going on, you know, around to a friend's house, or can JP come around for tea, like afterwards, you know, and you realise that your family's different and your household's different. And then obviously, you know, your parents and your family speak about, my dad was very open in speaking about that. And obviously I witnessed his process of going through dealing with that. I mean, there was 5 of us. So it wasn't easy for him. But I think this is what was interesting with music, that I drew a lot of parallels, was that it's something that you can't see and you can't touch, but you can feel it. And
yeah, I've heard you say that before.
Yeah.
Unpack that a little bit for me.
There's still unpacking for me. There's still a catharsis in writing. There's still a process of working it out. But again, coming back to that connection thing, I think when I found them quiet moments by myself, whether it was in my bedroom at my dad's house, or with a guitar, or with whatever, or with a book out, you know, writing, it felt more like a communication than me just, you know, trying to write a song. You know, there were moments where it really felt like I was communing with some other world that I couldn't see and I couldn't touch, but I was certain that it was there. And I don't know whether that's through just because I've been told all my life that it's there, but I'm grateful for it regardless. You know, I'm at a point in my life now where I'm kind of at peace with knowing that I don't know anything.
You know, it seems to me that JP's life is all about faith in things unseen. Trying to keep himself focused, trying to keep the noise out, trying to trust the universal connection he has always felt guided by. As JP grows into that faith in himself, he begins to realize if he doesn't listen, he will drown. Choosing that road and leaning into his heart has had real consequences. In fact, it even threatened the very thing that he was trying to protect the most, his singing voice. The first tough question, I haven't really got started yet, but why did it take you so long to trust yourself?
I do you know what it is? I feel like I spent so long trying to get through some sort of open door that meant that I could finally see this as some kind of career that might put food on the table for my family. You know, by the time I actually made a penny out of music, I was a dad, and I was a broke dad. And so I was coming from a place of, thank you so much for believing in me. Like, you know, just, you know, I'm here, you know, I'm new to this. And especially in the commercial world, I didn't know how to be in that world. I didn't fit. I didn't feel like I fit in that world. I just felt really awkward. So I kind of had this strange feeling like I was treading water.
Trying to survive.
Yeah, and it kind of took me a while to just realise, you know, it's great that doors are opening, people seem to be liking my music, there's big numbers, but I'm completely unfulfilled.
Do you know what moves us about you?
Yeah.
So why have you resisted it?
Before I signed a record deal, I only wrote by myself. I've never done any sessions with anybody else. And my songs, I felt at the time, were incredibly more, I can see the workings of my brain, and it was a lot more creative because it was completely free from a lot of different forms and structures that I've now learned that are great guides within understanding certain things. But the role of the record label is it's changed. And it used to be a case of, this is amazing, how do I get this out to the world? And nowadays it's, a lot of this is selling at the minute. Does it fit that? So
when did you realise that?
When everything stopped, you know, COVID, it was like, hang about. I hate going to the studio. I'm anxious on the road. Something's not, and anxiety comes from confusion. You know, it comes from a sense of self and this something that doesn't match up. There's a discord there, and I think that was a big part of it. Because don't get me wrong, I still go and work with Jonas. Love working with him. I love having a bit of fun in the studio and writing these shiny things.
If you have a skill at it, use it.
Exactly.
Especially if it gives you freedom.
But I have to satisfy the other side of me. And currently it's satisfied. So I'm completely free. Whereas before everything was, we need more of that. We need another September song. Do
you accept that the people who want to hear you need to listen?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because the other side of it is like, why is he doing that? Because
I got that sense from a lot of people though. Like, what's he doing? You know, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that were like, I'm just so glad he's on the radio. You know, I'm so glad he's finally, people are paying attention.
It's the Faustian pact, isn't it? I talked to Celeste about this. I call it the trap, that your art becomes secondary to the marketing of it. Louis Vuitton, the chairman of Louis Vuitton once was asked about how big his marketing department was. And he was like, well, we didn't used to have one.
Yeah.
And they were, well, why? He said, because we don't do marketing, we make art and we make what we want to make. And if people want to buy it, that's great. How does that relate to where you are at album 3?
So after the second album, I sat down with Louis at the label, and it was that point where they're going to pick up the next option. You know, are we going to do the third album together or are we not? And he said, we want to do the next album. I said, we know the conversation with radio has been getting more difficult, and I can't chase that anymore. You know, I can't do that. I end up hating myself. I end up constantly questioning myself. And the process of creation should be like play. Should be free. It should be. And if you've always got someone watching over what you're doing there, and whether that's yourself or this critical part of yourself that has somehow been formed as a result of the environment you found yourself in, then it's just negative. I'm never going to get my best work through doing that. And I'm never, see, my breakthroughs, you know, for years I wrote songs before anyone cared, but my personal breakthroughs was like, how did it make me feel? And how I'd see these tiny little improvements, whether it was as a singer or as a writer, and that was enough to keep me going. I was like, now everyone's obsessed with numbers and this and that and the other, but I need to get back to that part of me that I'm like, I'm growing and I'm releasing music and I'm getting feedback from myself and from my audience. I'm not talking about data. analysts looking at numbers, looking at how long someone listens to a song for, talking about real-time feedback. And one amazingly beautiful moment for me a couple of years back was I wrote a song way before the record deal called The Only Reason. It's on the first album.
Beautiful.
I always thought it was really special. Everybody thought it was really special. It was the first song on like the circuit, the underground circuit, that people were really like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful song. Like it's you know. And so that was the song that I thought I had. You know, if someone says, what's your biggest song? I thought that was the one. And then we put it out on the album, and it didn't really do big numbers. It wasn't a single, so obviously there's Where's the Focus, but it didn't really do these numbers. And then we saw this trend going on in South Africa. People were using it. And so I did a little acoustic version of it that I just threw up online and said, oh, it's nice to see this is going on. And I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments just saying, this is the song that made me want to listen to everything you ever did. And that was when there was a huge realization of like, I need to be chasing that.
Yeah, because how long do we dig in the wrong direction before no one's going to follow us anymore? When Amy passed, I took 5 years off and I went back. I was a dancer, that's what I trained as. I went back to the ballet company that I used to dance with in Belgium, and I said, can I just come and photograph the dancers? But then suddenly everybody's going, oh, that's the guy who photographed Amy Winehouse, and that's the guy who photographed Paul McCartney. And all the galleries were going, can you do a music exhibition? In the end, what I did was can I use some of the rejects? Can I use the pictures that no one liked? And everyone was like, well, why would you do that? I said, because they're the best pictures. They're the ones that tell the truth about you. And I did an exhibition called Unseen Icons.
Amazing.
Which were pictures that no one wanted. In what way is everything that's ever been rejected about you the only thing that is of real value to you?
Rejected is a strong word, I think. Because there's always been a small number of people who have really appreciated that. And I think I did a disservice to those people, and now it's time to remedy that. And I think that's where my excitements came back from.
Why are we in that place in the industry now, and how do we break it?
So people are squeezed. And I do feel like there's been a squeezing of the sonics that fit on a playlist. But I do see something happening where there is a lot more of this. Now we have so many tools at our fingertips that there is a huge DIY movement.
It's a real dilemma, because you speak a lot about vulnerability, and I want to go there next. You've called it a place that you need to lean into.
Yeah.
But you also run from it. And I wonder where you are with that.
So it's funny, because in my household, I saw vulnerability. But then I grew up in a very white, very working class estate where it was not good to show vulnerability. So there's always been these two worlds. There's definitely a northern kind of stiffness to a lot of the way that I present, and
then you open your mouth and it's all vulnerability.
When it comes to, actually no, I tell a lie. When I used to, I've said this before as well. Music class, if I got told to come up and sing Marco Polo or something like that, I'm going to sing every note out of tune, because it's not cool to sing. Unless you're singing an Oasis song, or, when I was in high school. And there was a slight shift the older I got, it was like, oh.
But didn't you lose your head voice at one point through the anxiety?
It happened again recently.
Talk to me.
So around the time of the release of my first album, I don't know whether it was just overwork, I don't know what it was. It was the closest thing I've had to any kind of breakdown. I ended up going to see a psychotherapist, and he gave me anxiety medication and this and that and the other. And I was like, oh, I've always kind of been a mind over matter kind of person. And then they're like, well, it doesn't really work like that. There was extreme fear in moments of, I want the ground to open up and swallow me, because my standards are so high that if I can't stand on that stage and at least be 90%, I'm worthless to myself.
I wonder whether it's sometimes the price of being an artist is that you have to go to that underworld of your emotional psychology and bring back a postcard. And are the songs you write and are the pain you offer to share with people, the gift you give but also the price you pay.
Yeah. Guess a kind of surrendering to that. And again, I was chatting to my dad about this last night, and he's like, sometimes maybe God's just reminding you how quickly this stuff can be taken away. But one of the things that I leaned into just before I went on I often get anxious before a tour. And it's strange because I've got a big tour coming up this year, and I don't feel anxious. And even though I've been having a few little voice issues, I don't really feel anxious. And a friend said to me before I went on tour last year, they said, it's not your job to be perfect. It's your job to kind of connect with these people. Music's about giving. It's just give. That's all you can do. And I got up on stage, and I knew that there was going to be some shows when that's not going to happen. My voice is going to cut out. And I think I just allowed myself to not be perfect.
Is there a sense that what you've got to give is not always pretty, therefore it's quite heavy to handle?
Yeah, and I think people are very used to seeing the polished, airbrushed.
I don't mean pretty vocally, because whether you sing broken or not broken, or whether there's a gap in the perfect note, it's still JP Cooper, and there's still a soul there that talks to anyone who has a soul and wants to listen. So when I say what JP Cooper has to give is not always pretty, is that heavy to hold?
Not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a subconscious thing. But when I'm in that space, I don't feel like it's hard work to get through those songs emotionally. Don't get me wrong. I found on the last tour, that was another thing. Everything was about the show. To an extent, it was like, all you need to worry about is replying to people who have said, great show last night, and doing the show. The rest of it, if you need to sleep all day. And I was sleeping 12 hours a night. And I think there was this emotional, because after most shows, I'll go and speak to people and they're telling me their stories, and I try and, again, give. But that night after night after night after night, I was needing to sleep for so long. So I guess there is a level of, like, it can be hard because
you're a storyteller. There's a price to pay for that because you're giving all the time. What do you give you?
I'm not sure. I don't think about it. And again, I think this comes back to parenting the child. Whether that's the right way around or not, I don't really think about that.
This conversation with JP has reminded me of a poem by Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Now, the essence of this poem sits at the very heart of what I feel is JP's work. The idea that we are all truly connected, even if we feel alone. And as we come back, we continue that search for catharsis through connection, looking for balance, a balance that has so far somehow always eluded him. But perhaps JP, like many of us, is just a man whose life has been spent looking for himself in the field of that poem. You said balance, no matter what height you reach without finding balance between work and life, it's hard to find fulfillment. When did you start to find balance?
I don't know if I'm finding it. I'm constantly seeking it, and I think there's definitely a creative balance now. I feel like very satisfied in the way that I'm making music, the way that I'm from conception to realization. I'm finding great balance in that. Balance in life, in career versus family life and all those things. I don't know if anybody fully ever realizes that. If you do, send me a postcard, because it's tough.
Sometimes when we're forced into a situation to make things in a certain way, beautiful things can happen because we don't expect them. and we're rattling around the walls of our freedom versus our constraints of what people want to hear or see. But are those moments of losing a bit of your voice or feeling anxious, are they breakthroughs rather than breakdowns? Can they be seen in that way?
Yeah, I've had to have breakthroughs because I don't have the luxury of having a breakdown, and that might sound really
Northern.
Yeah, but I've just not in that moment. It's like I can't just stop. Like my dad didn't have the luxury of breaking. It was you have to take these kids to school. You might not want to get out of bed that morning. You might want to go straight to the pub. These kids have got to go to school. These kids need feeding. These kids so. His pain doesn't matter to the world, and that's really harsh. At that time, the process of humanity, the world doesn't stop. And I guess growing up and seeing that, maybe that's why I can be quite harsh on myself, and that's why I've got that attitude. I had to break through. It's the only option, and maybe that's, I don't know if it's a glass half full thing or just no, there has to be a way through this. I'm not willing to just say, okay, that's beat me.
What's the difference between our art and our purse then? The pocketbook versus the notebook.
I think humanity, that's in all of its messiness. Art sustains you more so.
Do you know Alan Watts? Have you ever listened to his
name.
stuff? Yeah, he's like an old philosopher from the 60s and 70s. He said, my students come to me all the time and I say to them, if money was no object, what would you do? And they say to me, I'd ride horses and work on a ranch, or I'd work with children, or I'd be a scuba diver, or I'd try and train to be a doctor, or I'd try and train to be an artist. And he says to him, forget the money and do that.
Yeah.
Because if you do what you love, you'll be good at what you do. And if you're good at what you do, people will pay you a good fee to do that. Is the conflict for the artist the self-doubt of being who we really are versus the confidence of being who someone else thinks we might be?
Yeah.
And how is
there
that
a place that you can meet in the middle?
How do we square that circle? And how are you achieving it? Because I see you do it in songs like The Reason and songs like Silence.
Yeah. I'm going to be making music until I can't anymore. And that's not going to be just defined by any contracts or any of that kind of stuff. So all of this is, where am I finding myself at the minute? And constraints are healthy. There's so many
I agree with
ways that, and actually they challenge you. So I'm trying to work within those constraints as best as I possibly can, and how will that allow me to learn more about myself? How can you satisfy your creative self and do right by yourself, but at the same time make the most of the situation that you found yourself in? So that's where I'm at. I'm challenged in that. I'm challenged by the situation. I'm challenged by the people that I choose to work with because I want to be challenged. I don't want to surround myself with yes men and they're like, brilliant, JP, we'll just do that, because I don't have all the answers and I want to learn from them as well. And I like to walk down that alleyway with them and see what's at the other end. And if I don't like it, we can always turn back. But I'm learning to be a lot more open. I can sit at a snare drum and try and find a sweet spot in it, and that will light me up. When I get that crack right to put on a record, like that.
But isn't that beautiful?
It's incredible. I'm such a simple creature. There's so many little things that I can get massive dopamine out of. From, healthy, I don't know, is it healthy? I don't know, but I can obsess over that stuff. I've recently got into taking pictures myself because it makes me search for beauty. I love that. And then I started getting into film because I have to look harder and I have to be more sure of, I can't just be like, snap off a load of things. I'm like, I really need to, it takes me down. If I'm in a new city, I will aimlessly go for a walk rather than thinking about that hour and a half I'm on stage that night all day long. Oh, am I going to be good enough tonight? I'm searching for this other
One of the things I've got written down here, I didn't even to look at it, is JP's curse that he is in search of proof of beauty.
Curse.
Well, I was talking to an actor the other day called Charlie Palmer Rothwell, incredible young actor, and we talked about whether being between doubt and confidence is a conflict and a curse, and whether searching for proof of beauty is a curse because it's either revealed or absent. Every human has got the capacity for both. And if you believe in someone and they break that trust, you don't have proof of beauty. So is it a curse to be in pursuit of it, or is that part of the beauty of tragedy?
I don't see it as a curse. I see it as a massive blessing. Trying to train my lens on that when I wake up, that's, and I think that's part of, as a writer, or as you're training yourself to pick up on things, whether it's in a conversation, whether it's in a movie, whether it's how two colours interact together. One of the things that I've learned, and the older I get, is that I prefer to be behind the camera and just observe. When I was younger, I felt the need to be, I wanted people to see me. The older I get, I much prefer to watch and observe and to be, like I said, behind the camera, looking for that beauty rather than feeling the pressure to be the beauty.
I think that's amazing. Is that part of the losing of the dreads and the stripping back
I do think that was a big part of it. It just, after a while, it was like, I spent more time pulling pints behind a bar than I did being anyone that somebody needs to do anything other than them. And I quite like being that guy. I'll always have a smile for you. I've got my work cut out for me. We'll have a bit of a chat. I'm serving you. When all of a sudden, oh, what are you about? What do you do? And that came with the hair, It was, you go out and meet a friend, you go out with a friend and he's got a few of his friends and they don't know who you are, but they're like, what's he about? So what do you do? You must be this or you must be that. And it was funny when I cut my hair, we'd just moved into a new house and we went to a furniture store or whatever, and the woman says, what, do you mind me asking, what do you do? And usually when people said that, it was like, are you an artist? Are you a DJ? And I was like, she was like, oh, you look like a tradesman. And I was like, yes, I'm one of the people, and I feel like I've been such a part of that, and I think the very difficult thing, and again, is another thing I spoke to my wife about recently, is being a part of a grounded community is a massive part of where we find happiness from. And I think it's really hard to do that as somebody who is expected to be something other than just a regular person. And I think that's why a lot of people in that kind of lifestyle struggle, because it's not normal. We're not built to be these special people. We're built to live in communities and be a part of community and feel like we're offering something to that community.
In our final moments, I really want to let JP take the lead and own this conversation. The proof of beauty we spoke about has led him to a much bigger question. Who is JP? Where is he happy? What is success? Somehow all this leads us full circle back to ideas of connecting to loss as a teacher, not just a trauma. Being in the moment and grateful for the gift of his voice. And ultimately finding everything he thought he had lost in everything he has around him every day.
There's this great pressure to be somebody in this world, but on a grand scale, this idea of, I want that blue tick next to my name. I want this many followers. I want to be famous. And actually, I feel like there is great joy, because I wonder where my levels of happiness, being the bartender or being the guy on stage. I was pretty happy being that guy. I'm glad I'm doing this. I absolutely love the fact that I get to think up ideas and I've got people around me to help me try my best to realize them. kind of an amazing life is there.
So is there a level to JP that he is this happy human who just happens, what did you say? JP is a happy human who happens to sometimes have clouds in his mind and uses music to get the clouds out of his mind so he can be the happy human.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think generally I'd consider myself kind of happy, maybe not always content, because there's all of these, there's order in my world that I can never quite find. But I think now the focus is a lot more on who am I? Who am I if I have a chance encounter with somebody, would they speak kindly of me? You know, after that, if I meet someone after a show, how do I show up for those people in that moment? Care more about that than, you know, when I cut off my hair, there was a part of me that was like, oh gosh, I hate seeing myself in my reflection. It's weird because when I look back at videos or pictures of me with the hair, I'm like, who's that guy? Like, I don't really resonate with that person as much.
It was a mask, no?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of, I see myself now and I'm getting a bit older, and there's a lot of things that I'm like, gosh, I used to think I was like, I've had to laugh about this with my mate the other day. It's like, we used to be cool, man. And I think I just got to that point where I'm like, I'm sure I am to somebody, but maybe it doesn't matter for me as much.
Are you cool to you though? What do you see in the mirror when you wake up in the morning?
Oh, it's not cool. That is not a cool person, but I'm like, whatever,
Why is it not a cool person? You are a cool person.
So I guess
What is cool
it's
though?
more an idea of beauty standards and all that kind of stuff. There's certain people who just like the way the clothes hang off them, the way everything is like.
So you're talking about the aesthetics.
100%, yeah.
Well, when I was learning to photograph people, what I learned very quickly is how I made them feel while I photographed them is why the picture was accepted. And sometimes when we're talking about the unseen icons, sometimes if you manage to get a vulnerable moment, sometimes someone has a problem with it because you see a bit too much of their truth. But if you make them feel safe in that sadness, the pictures are always beautiful.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing gift to be able to open up that space for somebody to be that, And I guess in a way that's.
But I think you do that.
Yeah.
What do you want from your, the voice you've been gifted, the message you have to convey? What do you want from it?
I just want to see how much I can excite myself by the sounds and the songs and the stories and the worlds that are being created. Like I'm obsessed by just. And I guess the excitement comes from feeling like there will be a connection with people.
Connecting to what in people?
An emotion, some sense of a healing or an opening.
You said a couple of years ago that you ache for the freedom to be spontaneous because that's where vulnerability exists.
Yeah. I think it's the doors open into that world. This is a journey and a path to somewhere that I don't really know where it's going to take me, but I kind of know the boundaries and the parameters of that. And I feel like I'm just stepping into that.
So to become unafraid of loss then, in a way.
Yeah.
I asked, where are you when you arrived? Where are you now? This moment.
The huge word that comes into my head, there's two words, and one is excitement and the other one is gratitude. That's where I'm at in my life. And I couldn't ask for anything more, really. I'm grateful and I'm excited. And I'm grateful for that to be an answer.
Yeah. So we're going to do a quick fire round that we do with everyone. You have to be quite quick.
I'm not so good at this, but
what frightens you?
I'm trying to be quick. What frightens me? It's weird. The first thing that comes into my head is loss. even though I'm good at pretending it doesn't.
When are you brave?
Every day.
Why?
I guess because I've had to be, and now it's just part of life.
Why have you had to be?
Why have I had to be brave? I think I've always felt like I didn't quite fit. And being brave is being all right with that.
That's beautiful. Who are you when no one else is looking?
I'm an idiot. I struggle to go, if I'm in a public toilet and there's no one in there, I struggle to go past a mirror without pulling a face at myself. I'm an idiot. People think, oh, they write these songs. I'm such an idiot. My wife sees that. My sisters see that. I'm an idiot. Happy little idiot.
Why is tribe important?
You've
answered this all through the conversation.
I'm glad you used that word, because having currently 2 children by 2 different women, and having a close relationship with that as a tribe, and Isaac's mum has another daughter, has another 2 daughters, and there's this, it feels like a tribe. There's family and there's blood and there's all of those things, but we've got this modern family tribe thing going on. And actually, with all of the things that are going on in the world, it's very easy to want to fix everything. We have more information now than we ever have, more than is probably healthy for us as one single human being. And I think one of the things that I've really tried to boil things down to is, how can I do right by the nucleus? And anything outside of that is a bonus. And I know that the impact that as a child, my tribe and my family and my people around me have had on me. So I'm trying to double down on that now.
Why is it important?
For me, that's been my wings. It's been my savior in so many situations. And I guess
you say wings?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So the tribe is wings.
You like distilling things, right? There you go.
Yeah. JP, thank you so much for coming in.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Good. We're done. Thank you, Adam.